So we are here at our brand new townhouse listing, 127 East 92nd in Carnegie Hill of the Upper East Side. And I have Joel Bermano with me, who is probably one of the most interesting artists / humans I've ever met in my entire life. Joel has been painting for many years now, but that was certainly not his first employment, if you will. He found his way to painting through a series of events, which I'm excited to learn more about and have you guys hear about as well. We had the pleasure of staging this townhouse together, and Joel has outfitted this 5-story home with several pieces, many of which were curated specifically for the house itself. Joel has painted for Pope Francis, for the royal family of Monaco, Nelson Mandela, to name a few people. So I'd love to ask you a few questions.
I would love to answer whatever questions you got. What a wonderful introduction I just got.
I mean, you've crafted it for yourself, so it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, thank you. Just first of all, this property is mind-blowing. I mean, it's 5 stories of it's magnificent. If I sell a few more paintings, maybe I'll buy the place.
I would love that. That would make me really happy, and then we could have all of the art stay. We wouldn't have to move anything out of here.
Exactly. Yeah, my art career has been an incredible journey. As you say, I've done quite a few things. Thank God I've done them all quite well. My background is I come from a boxing promotional family. I was born in South Africa, so my entire childhood was surrounded by boxing. I landed up going to live in Las Vegas in 2014, where I became the youngest licensed professional boxing promoter in the state. And art was not even on my radar then. I mean, I was in a blood sport. So
right. Kind of the polar opposite.
The exact polar opposite. I used to make beef jerky and give it to all my friends, and I was promoting fighting. Now I'm a plant-based vegan who paints. So it's an exact polar opposite of what I used to do. I've also, since I was young, coming from South Africa, been in the diamond business. And I still do diamonds because I've got some big clientele. It's not something that I would ever stop doing. But I've got a wonderful balance. My clients love the fact that I do both.
Right.
And I live quite an
interesting life.
I do. I live an interesting life. So it's a mixture between, I'm still involved. I actually painted a beautiful painting for the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
That's incredible. Tell us a little bit about that piece.
Well, that piece, the story is incredible because I got a call from a guy who was second in charge just under Dana White. Mm-hmm. He was a very dear friend of mine, and he actually helped me get my boxing promoter's license in Las Vegas. And he bought a painting for me about 4 years ago, and he called me last December to say he had really good news. So I said, what's the news? So he actually said, I've got good news and good news. So I said, well, that's nice. I mean, so he said he had just sold his home. It was pretty much about the same price as this home. It was about $9 million. Mm-hmm. And the buyer made it a condition of sale that the painting that he bought from me remained in the house. And it was a lion. And he literally phoned me to say, technically speaking, he sold my lion for $9 million and gave them the house for free.
That's probably the biggest compliment you could receive as an artist.
It truly is. It truly is. Basically, that was the transaction.
Yeah.
So the painting brought such beautiful energy to the home that the client became attached to the painting.
Right.
And then he commissioned me to paint the UFC logo, which is stunning. And it was a challenge because it's a very big brand, so I had to get the logo correct. You know,
right.
And then I painted him another lion. So yeah, that was a nice story.
Well, I think that speaks volumes to the fact that art really does bring life into a home. Yeah. And it's really an essential part of not only staging, but just part of life.
Yeah.
I've noticed that lions are a recurring theme for a lot of your pieces. What's the strangest commission request you've ever had?
I got a client who asked me to paint like half a lion and half a butterfly, kind of mixed.
Okay.
It was an incredible challenge. I don't even think I've shown you the painting, but I'll send it to you later. And I called it Lion Fly. And it literally is a butterfly that looks like there's a lion inside it.
Wow.
It's really cool. It's different. It's not for everybody. It's a little psychedelic. In fact, it's probably the most psychedelic piece I've painted. It's a bit odd. But it's beautiful.
That's saying something because I've seen a lot of his pieces and some pretty trippy, dippy art. So I'm excited to see
I'm
to
looking
see
forward
that.
to you seeing it.
And you only work in acrylic. I've noticed we have probably about 20 pieces of his art in here, and all of the paintings are acrylic. Do you ever dabble with other mediums?
When I first started painting, I was actually at the guy's house who owns. I painted an oil fireworks. The painting weighs, just the paint weighs about 90 pounds of
wow.
pure oil. It took 8 months for me to be able to lift the canvas off the floor, otherwise all the paint would have come off. Literally 8 months before I could lift it. So it's the paint's about that thick. I could paint in any medium, but I paint passionately and I paint fast. It's my if you look at, you'll look later, but there's a lot of energy that goes into my art. So painting with oils would just take too long to dry. It would literally, this painting would have taken 6 months, 5 months before we could have put it on the wall. It would have damaged the wall. But in the society we live in now, it doesn't make any difference. Some of the most expensive paintings in the world that have sold for 180, 200 million are acrylics. So it's a wonderfully accepted medium now. It's not like the old days where oil meant it was better. It's not like that anymore.
Well, thank goodness. If
Thank
we weren't
goodness.
evolving, then we'd have some serious problems in the world. And how did you find your way into art, from beef jerky to fighting? What was your first foray into painting?
Well, it's part of my background, and since I was a kid, I've suffered from bipolar disorder, a lot of depression, anxiety, you name it, whatever goes with it. Since I was a young boy, the earliest I remember is about 6. So most of my adult life, if you could call it, I had a bit of a dark cloud hanging over my head. No one knew I hid it very well. The thought of ever becoming an artist wasn't even a thought process. Mm-hmm. Then I painted the second painting I've ever painted in 2008. That's 6 years later when I was living in Dallas. Again, when my life felt light and I felt that heaviness, it almost disappeared. I had this overwhelming urge to paint again. Mm-hmm. And what came out of me was color and beauty and light, not the darkness that I had felt. So pretty much every painting that you see is just beautiful and colorful, almost childlike, in the sense that it's like I did lose a large part of my childhood, and it all came out of me. So then I'll cut the story very short, but in 2010 I went to visit a friend in Singapore, and he was going through a really bad time. And the only thing that really fascinated me about the art industry, because I was so concerned with existential concepts in life, I didn't even notice art. It was nothing to me. But I walked into his house and I saw a painting on his wall, and it was this very basic painting, and I said, "How much did you pay for that?" He had lost all his money. She said he paid $25,000. I said, "Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got no money." I said, "If you could buy that painting for $25,000, I'm going to go home and I'm going to paint you. It was a rooster. And my rooster will sell for $1 million." And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. In any case, I flew back to Dallas at the time, and I went to the art store and I painted a rooster. And that is how I started painting to what you see now. I couldn't stop. I literally could not stop.
Well, it's your therapy too.
It was my absolute therapy. Whenever I felt down, which is a lot of mornings. You know, you get out of bed, the painting saves me. I get out of bed and I get lost in the most beautiful, incredible world. And it's just from that day, I've even got it stamped in my passport. It was like November the 9th, 2010. I landed up painting my Harley Davidson. I threw paint all over it. I'll send you the pictures. I had a BMW. I painted my watches. I painted the floor like the beach. I mean, my landlord, what I had to pay,
You didn't
my
own the
landlord
house.
to fix up the apartments.
Oh no.
I paid him so much money because I would really, just as a friend, I'd like to show you these pictures.
I can't wait to see them.
They're going to blow your mind. So yeah, that's the rooster story is what shot me into where I am now. I was so overwhelmed that this guy had paid $25,000 for this piece of art that I started to paint. That then evolved into, I felt so wonderful that I'd been given a reprieve from the depression and the bipolar, that my main goal to paint was that I decided to give a lot back to amazing charitable organizations. And if you look at my website, I've donated over $250,000 to charities like Operation Smile, the American Cancer Association. I support 4 amazing South African charities. So everything that I do, and I'm motivated to sell because I give a lot back.
Right.
And that was what pushed me forward. That was my big impetus to carry on painting. Was the giving back.
Right.
Because I was so grateful that I got a second chance.
That's such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with everybody.
Listen, you got to be real. I mean, there's a big mental health issues are, I would say, I mean, not a psychologist, but a lot of people really suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think, now more than ever because we're being put in positions that we haven't been in before. So I'm looking forward to more people speaking freely about it. And I think this is a great example of being able to turn, you know, something that could be a hindrance into a benefit. Like, not only are you helping yourself emotionally and expressing yourself to the world, you're actually making a living from it. So you really can find something that you're passionate about, and beauty and persevere.
Look, I'm very blessed. It's not easy to make it as an artist.
No, it's certainly not.
The truth of the matter is that New York has been phenomenal to me. People take calls. People listen to you. If you've got the hustle, if you've got the guts to do it, because artists take a lot of rejection. And you've just got to be able to push through, because it's not easy to make a living. Thank God I make a very nice living from the arts, but it's been a crazy 11 years.
Well, look at where we are now. We're in a $9 million townhouse on the Upper East Side, showcasing some beautiful pieces. And
Ryan Serhant, the story with the UFC was a very big story. When I heard that, I realized that I had to start working with the top echelon of real estate agents in the world. And Ryan was one of the people that I definitely wanted to work with. Mm-hmm. And it's truly an honor to be part of this listing with his name. It's the Serhant name's one of the strongest names in art, in property in the world, arguably.
100%.
So, yeah, look where we are. We're in this beautiful listing.
And to your point with the New York City people taking calls, we actually met through another listing, a project that my team was handling about 1.5 years ago. And we were curating an art show, basically, that lived in the building for a year. And I was hosting art talks with all of the artists. We had 15 artists that were being represented. And Bermano found this art talk that we were hosting about 1.5 years ago on LinkedIn, where we had been promoting it. And he showed up, didn't RSVP or anything, came, introduced himself to me, introduced himself to my business partner, Jordan, and Sean. And then about a week later, we met at Soho House for a lunch. And this is our first project that we're getting to do together. So I think
and
that
what a
speaks
project.
volumes to,
Yeah.
you know, just having the bravery to call and reach out.
Sure.
And you never know what kind of beauty can come from that.
It's all about planting seeds.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it was a year and a half ago. This is really, yeah, it's incredible. I worked very hard to get in with the right people. And you just can't stop. And that pretty much, I mean, real estate brokers are the biggest, have one of the hardest jobs in the world. You have to be the best. I mean, you've got to be one of the best. I've got this listing because you need people to believe in you. It's the same with art. If you don't believe in your own art, if you don't believe in your own property, you're not going to sell it.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
the
it's a
process has
pleasure.
been amazing.
Symbiotic relationships.
Yes, exactly,
Right?
exactly.
I'm going to ask one more question and then I won't take any more of your time.
Okay.
But I'd love to hear about your meeting with the Pope and how that came about.
Wow, it's so just going back to what I said when I first started painting in 2010, and I announced I had a crazy manic episode, Katie. I mean, I literally went crazy. When I say I painted my cars and my house, I mean, I had a critically manic episode. I literally gave up a very high-paying job in the diamond business to overnight paint. I told everybody I'm going to paint. There were a lot of people that were very worried about me because I totally lost my grounding. One day I was selling diamonds, the next day I was going to be the greatest artist that ever lived. Truly, I truly believe that. I still believe that one day I will sell a painting for $1 million. It's going to happen.
Might not be the rooster, but
It ain't going to be the rooster because my friend will never give it back to me. So I made up the name Bermano. My last name is Berman. And I thought, well, Picasso, Van Gogh, Miro, Michelangelo. So I gave myself this nom de plume Bermano, like one of the Italian great artists. And at the time, I mean, people weren't laughing. Well, they were kind of laughing. I mean, Bermano. The same people that were laughing, one of them just spent $40,000 on a painting with me last week. So no one gave me a chance. It was impossible. How do you break into the art world at the age of 40 when you never painted a painting before?
right.
So came 2017, and there's an incredible organization called the Non-Violence Foundation. Their symbol is a knotted gun, which sits outside the United Nations. It's a very famous statue.
Yeah.
And they'd seen my colors. One of the directors had been to somebody's house and had seen one of my paintings. And they had sent invitations to about 30 of the world's top artists at the time. Not that I was one of the world's top artists, still not. I mean, I'm getting there, I'm an emerging artist, but they asked me if I would submit a design of a statuette of the knotted gun because the Vatican had endorsed the charity and they were going to choose the best design. And they sent me the statuette. It's like the cow parade type of thing, but they were only choosing one, and I painted this gun. And I was chosen. I mean, there were some heavy-hitting name artists they were asked to paint. Damien Hirst, Ramiro Brito, those kind of names. So they flew me to the Vatican, and it was truly an incredible day. And I met the Pope, and I presented him with a statuette. And it wasn't I could have been meet. It wasn't the fact it was the Pope. The Pope is in the world regarded as he's the number one figure in the world.
Right.
And the fact that in 7 years, I'd gone from people saying, "What are you doing?" and what you're doing is you're crazy. Go back to selling diamonds. You've thrown your life away. That 7 years later, I got to meet the Pope and give him a piece of my artwork that now sits in his collection at the Vatican. For me, it was like, wow, it was just ratification of my dream. I didn't stop.
Yeah, absolute
And,
validation.
Well,
right?
yeah, and it was very high validation because you don't get to get bigger than giving something to the Pope. So, presidents come and go. But it was an incredible day. It was just that I followed my dream, and wow, man, I got to Pope Francis, and yeah, it was a great day for me. Yeah, it was truly a spectacular experience. Not because of the Pope per se, it was because that I've broken through, and I was finally recognized for something that was almost impossible to do.
That's incredible. Joel, thank you so much for joining us and for all of these beautiful art pieces that are living in the world, and for this time being at 127 East 92nd Street.
Thanks, Katie. It's really, as I said, it's an honor to be here, and to be part of a Sirhant listing is, wow, it's really great.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.